The Teletubbies conspiracy theory claims that the show was inspired by events that happened in a Bulgarian mental facility called La La Land. Children there were isolated from the others and placed in dark rooms, but apparently 4 of those children died on the same day, inspiring the Teletubbies. Lala apparently had facial disfigurement and was isolated for 5 years, and that inspired the Teletubby Lala. Toite was a deaf, facially disfigured kid who was tied to a fence outside and had gotten frostbitten from the cold. This inspired Tinky Winky. Donka, who was starved and was very sick, would lay in his own vomit for days, inspired Dipsy. And finally, Paulina, who had fell into a fire and was roasted alive, inspired Poe. But you won't believe the reason they were called the Teletubbies. You see, the children's main source of entertainment in their rooms were their TVs. They were as small as a small iPad. Sometimes when they heard their toys was going to be confiscated, they would hide them in their mouths. And they had just found out that the institution was going to get rid of the TVs. And they didn't want that, and they couldn't hide the TVs in their mouths. So one of them had the great idea to hide them in their stomachs, because that's the only place they could fit. Mind you, these kids are a little bit not all the way there. So they came up with a plan to rip their insides out in order to fit the TVs inside and hide them. They tried it, and the next morning, the caregiver walked in on all 4 children dead.
This is the freaky story of the Lemon Glitch Girl. So this girl is a cook in a restaurant or a cafe or a hotel. I'm not really sure what this place is. She was chopping a lemon in the kitchen, and then she picked one of the slices and she cut it in half. But then when she picked it up again, it wasn't cut in half. She is now realizing that there is something very off. She went back to get the tapes, and she saw that she indeed did cut the lemon in half. She started talking about this story on her TikTok, and then she got banned. Then she went to her mom's TikTok and repurposed the same story, and then she got banned on her mom's account as well. Now the whole internet is calling it the Matrix glitch. I don't want to give it that name, but I did see with my own eyes that she did cut the lemon in half. What do you guys think happened?
The UK's heaviest man, Jason Holton, has just passed away 1 week before his 34th birthday. His heartbroken mother said that he began overeating as a teenager after his father passed away, and at one point he was eating roughly 10,000 calories a day. Over the years, his weight increased to the point where his legs could no longer hold him, and after becoming bedridden, he didn't leave his room for a staggering 6 months. He said he would cry every day because he felt like he had imprisoned himself. At that point, he weighed around 317 kg, or for those who in the US, 700 pounds. In 2020, his organs began to shut down, and he had to be airlifted by crane from his mother's 3rd floor flat by a team of more than 30 firemen and engineers. When he got to the hospital, doctors said that they wanted to send him to London Zoo to get a heart scan because the only machine big enough to hold him was used by vets for very large animals. Luckily, thanks to his treatment at hospital, his condition began to stabilize. But 4 years later, he was rushed to hospital yet again. But this time, doctors said that they couldn't save him, and he had about a week left to live. The coroner's report stated on Tuesday he died from organ failure and obesity at only 33 years old.
Here's what would happen if all women on Earth died. So if all women disappeared from Earth right now, the men would start to panic and many car accidents would occur. Then men would start stealing, fighting, and rioting. Everything would be a mess. But after a few weeks, the men would start to develop a solution. A lot of money would be invested in various studies and technologies. There would also be a lot more food because the population would start to die out. After a few months, men would start to fall in love with each other. But still, there would be no way to increase the population. After a few decades, there wouldn't be a single human being on Earth because everybody would be dead. Now comment how long you think you would survive.
This is him when he was 20s, and follow my TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for more. Interacting really helps.
We need to talk about what happened to Sally Stitch. Sally was a girl from a small village in the middle of the mountains. People described her as shy and awkward, and there was one group of kids who would always bully her. One day as Sally was walking home, the bullies found her and started throwing rocks at her. But then Sally did something that shocked them. She pointed at one of the bullies and said, "You will die in 3 days." At first they thought this must be a joke, but 3 days later that boy started unexpectedly throwing up blood. The doctors couldn't find out what caused it, and he passed away exactly when Sally predicted. Soon everyone knew about Sally's ability and it really scared them. So a group of villagers lured Sally into an abandoned mine. And once no one could see her or hear her scream, they tied her to a chair and took out a sewing needle. They stitched Sally's lips together so she could never foretell another death. Then they left her in the mine and sealed the door closed. It's said that since Sally passed away alone in the dark and unable to scream, she now haunts anyone who knows what really happened to her. And once you hear her story, you have to pass it on to someone else, or she'll appear by your bed with a needle to make sure you never speak again. So send this story to someone else and follow for more.
Insane true stories that you won't believe. This man right here is named Henry Tandy. And Henry was the most decorated British soldier during World War I, meaning that he had the most medals and honors. But that's not why he's known today. On a fall day in 1918, Henry was propped up on a war trench just like this one, scanning the battlefield before the day came to an end. As he was looking across the field, he noticed a shadowy figure walking towards him through the mist. He grabbed his rifle because he wasn't sure if this guy was on his side or the enemy. And as the figure got closer, Henry realized that this guy was severely wounded. And he had a German uniform, meaning that he was indeed the enemy. The wounded soldier kept walking slowly towards Henry, not knowing the danger he had gotten himself into. Henry aimed his rifle at the man and prepared to shoot. But as the German realized what was about to happen, he didn't try to run away. He just stood there and accepted his fate. For some reason, Henry just couldn't find the strength to shoot this guy. The soldier didn't even have a weapon, so Henry lowered his rifle and let him escape. That soldier was Adolf Hitler.
Interesting facts you didn't know. The last one will shock you. There are only 2 people alive who know the recipe of Coca-Cola, and they aren't allowed to travel on the same plane in case it crashes. Did you know that TikTok knows who has a crush on you? Your secret admirer is the second person that appears when you click on share than WhatsApp. Research shows that most dog owners would rather hang out with their dogs instead of other people. There is no single comment under this video with 0 likes. People who like the smell of gasoline, nail polish, and acetone have a very strong tendency to do drugs. Before passing away, Albert Einstein said a few words in German. The only person to listen was a nurse who didn't speak German. If you comment evil, you will unlock a new secret TikTok emoji. Remember to use the brackets with small letter. There is a species of jellyfish that is biologically immortal. This means that it can theoretically live forever as long as it doesn't get eaten or injured. The world's oldest piece of gum is 9,000 years old, and it was found in Sweden. And now, before the last fact, support us by pressing the plus button for more interesting content every day. The probability of you drinking a glass of water with molecules that have passed through a dinosaur is almost 100%.
Okay, let's do it. Yes, y'all, my blinds are closed. Today we are going to talk about the movie The Incredibles and how it connects to today's society. Now, as we know, The Incredibles is about a superhuman family that tries to save the world. In the beginning, it was just 2 of them. They were using their powers, helping people, saving the world, until the government and the news media started to hate them. They were supposedly taking away the jobs of police and firefighters and all that, until they made it illegal to be a superhero. He hated his life. He tried to be domestic. He tried to have a job. He got married. He had kids and all of that. He tried to live the regular life as a human. But it just wasn't it. He knew he could be more. Now, why do I say this? We all are living just like Bob. We have so much greatness that we can create, but we want to sit at a desk. Don't believe me? So it is said over 90% of our DNA is junk. Because it's not activated, we don't use it. It's just sitting in our bodies just doing nothing, huh? What if the food that we eat and the air that we breathe is constantly blocking us from those powers? So we can't be like the Incredible. Y'all have to understand that there are things put in place to keep you at the specific level in your life that you are right now. You are so much more than trying to memorize the front register. Do more and be more. It shouldn't just be school, work, family, die. They need things to keep running the way it is. They want us to be just like Bob when he was working and he was over it and he had them powers and he didn't get to use them. because it messes up what they want and they have. It works out for them if we're just docile and we don't pay attention to things. Everything will be okay if you just do everything their way. Don't do anything extraordinary, just be normal and don't do nothing but work. And then groom your kids, take them to school and make them work just like you. Don't be like this. Don't use your powers. Be in the system. But y'all be safe.
If you go to London, don't even think about using your phone on the streets anymore. In recent years, there has been a massive surge in phone thefts. People will be waiting for the bus or just walking around using their phones when these guys dressed in all black will come up behind them on a bike, snatch their phone out of their hands and quickly accelerate off. And this is not like 1 or 2 cases a day. There was almost 91,000 phones stolen from Londoners in 2022, which is an average of 248 a day, or 1 stolen every 6 seconds. Oh my lord. And it's believed to only have got worse since then. Nearly 70% of all thefts in London were related to mobile phones. Only 2% of the stolen phones were actually recovered, and young people are disproportionately the targets of these crimes. And that is why...
Shocking true story about a 200-year-old mummified monk that is still alive. A 200-year-old mummified monk has been found in Mongolia. Although the monk is mummified, reports say he's not actually dead but in a deep meditative state. There is so much curiosity about this that people were trying to smuggle and sell him on the black market. Although they're not totally sure his identity, they believe he was a teacher that told his students he was going to die and to dig him up in 30 years.
That each other exist.
What, don't know they exist?
Sharks have no fucking clue that camels exist. And
oh boy, do I have a story for you. So like fun fact, actually mildly disturbing fact, camels are one of those animals that have no business swimming but do it anyway, and they're unnecessarily good at it. And an animal whose home address is a desert being able to pull up on you in the ocean is one of the biggest you I do what I want moves from nature. There's a type of dromedary camel called karai that are so comfortable with water that they'll cross rivers and even shallow stretches of the ocean as they look for food. And that's because these overgrown water donkeys love eating mangroves on islands offshore, so much that they'll travel for hours to get it. There's actually a pretty good chance that at least one shark has seen one of these sand-loving hump jockeys out in the ocean. He told his friends. They did not believe him. Moral of this video: if you're ever on a boat off the coast of a country like Algeria, you better be prepared to say what's up to a camel.
Why have scientists done this? Scientists have successfully brought back a 48,000-year-old zombie virus. Is it time to go to Mars yet, buddy? Now trust me, you're gonna want to favorite this video because this could actually change the world. So not just that, they also identified 13 new viruses in the same permafrost, each genetically different from each other. The amoeba virus that they have successfully woken up from its slumber has been brought to a point where it is now capable of infecting other living organisms. Or another living organism! And not just that, the lead scientist herself said this, that these reanimating viruses are potentially a significant threat to public health. And researchers have warned that this is just the tip of the iceberg, saying that the increasing warming of the Earth will thaw the remainder of the Siberian permafrost, revealing nasty pathogens from melting organic matter, releasing them potentially into the world. But trust me, send this video to literally anyone you know because they need to see it. Yo, Elon!
Fascinating as fuck. In the year 1996, Ukraine handed over all their nuclear weapons to Russia in exchange for a guarantee to never be threatened or invaded. In 2009, Burger King ran a marketing campaign called the Whopper Sacrifice. Basically, they give you a free Whopper for deleting 10 of your friends off Facebook. Facebook actually had to shut down the campaign because people were getting offended that they were unadded for a Whopper. In the rural homestead communities of the early 1900s, if a mother was unable to breastfeed her baby, a goat nurse would be brought in to feed the baby, saving its life. A Japanese company has recently started selling cakes, but canned and out of a vending machine. They come packaged in what looks like a Coke can, and all you have to do is pop off the lid and dig in. This footage shows a new Japanese game show conducting an experiment to see if humans would fall for a lanternfish's trap. Ethiopia has a totally different calendar to the rest of the world, meaning they're 7 to 8 years behind us. Current year in Ethiopia, 2014.
This is really strange. This ex-Marine says he believes he may have just stumbled upon a serial killer crime after strangely finding multiple women's high heels in a very remote location in western Colorado. Levi was out in the desert four-wheeling when he needed to pee, so he goes over to this pond which he had never seen before because of its hidden location. And as he's doing his thing, he looks down and notices a woman's shoe. At first, he didn't think much of it until he saw another shoe which matched the first. He decided to walk around a little bit and he came across 5 pairs of women's shoes all along this shoreline, some of which had heels snapped off. And because they were all different sizes and types, indicating that they belonged to multiple different people, at this point, his interest was really piqued. But things got even stranger. On his walk, he noticed that just underneath the surface of the water, there were these large boulders placed all the way out into the mud. And they just so happened to be in a position where you can step on them either to walk all the way out to this island or to a deep section of the pond. He's not sure which. Either way, he decided to walk out himself when the water was much lower than you can see in this video. And about halfway in, he sees a little piece of plastic sticking up out of the mud. It isn't long until he finds out that this little piece of plastic was actually a heel for one of the shoes he had already found. The next day he goes back, but this time he calls friends who had sniffer dogs, and in total they found 10 pairs of women's shoes. And they weren't just regular, all of them were very fancy dress-up heels. All of them had matching pairs, and one of them he even described as being brand new. He says that he did go to the sheriff's department, but when they told him it was probably nothing, he couldn't let it go, and yesterday he decided to post a video about this whole situation, looking for answers and help. And the part that really caught my attention is that he's never posted anything like this before. All of his previous videos were just about his epoxy floors and countertops. So if anyone does have any answers, I've tagged his page. I'll keep you guys updated as we find out more.
Which countries have the most serial killers? On average, in your lifetime, you will walk past 36 murderers / serial killers. So that actually got me thinking, which countries have the most serial killers? And of course, there's a study, and here are the results. The top 21 countries with the most serial killers, so the countries with the least, are Sweden, the Netherlands, Scotland, Poland, Spain, and Hungary. Placing 15th to 11th, we have Austria, Brazil, Mexico, China, and France. Okay, now this is the top 10 countries that have produced the most serial killers. We have Russia, India, Australia, Germany, and Japan. Placing in the top 5, we have Italy with 97, Canada with 106, South Africa with 117, England with 166, and the United States with 3,204. Now send this to someone who you know lives in one of these countries because you made the list. Elon!
Proof that we weren't alone.
Hello my friend, every few months this video is remade and circulates and then I get tagged. The video was of Elephant Rock. It's found in Iceland. It may look like an elephant's head from this side, which is why you're only shown one side. The other side happens to be regular rock. But I like this, you showed an image of Zunisha, a character from One Piece. One Piece happens to be one of my favorite shows. It's basically a world with many different islands, and this island happens to be a living elephant. There's like a settlement at the top. But for an elephant, Zunisha sure has some lanky legs.
Gideon, it is a picture of the last Neanderthal. Oh my days.
Hello my friend, that image was created using AI. But I think it's important to note that Neanderthal were shorter than Homo sapiens. The average Neanderthal was below 5'6" or 170 centimeters. And from the archaeological evidence we have, Neanderthals went extinct around 30 to 40,000 years ago. And believe it or not, the tallest of the known human species is actually the Homo sapien.
Did this woman chop her husband up and dump him in a suitcase? Melanie McGuire married Bill in 1999. They had 2 sons together, and from the outside it looked like they had a really good relationship. However, behind closed doors, things were not good. Melanie claimed that Bill had a gambling problem and a temper. One night in 2004, Melanie claims that Bill pushed her against a wall in an argument and hit her. She then stated that he tried to choke her. The next day, Bill was missing. Melanie contacted a divorce attorney and also filed for a restraining order. On May the 5th, 2004, some fishermen discovered a suitcase in Chesapeake Bay. Inside, they made a horrific discovery. Inside was a man's dismembered legs. Over the next week or two, more suitcases were found. These contained a torso, a head, thighs, and a pelvis. It was found that the person had been shot to death. When the man was identified as Bill McGuire, Melanie said that she burst into tears. Interestingly, police found that Melanie had bought a gun 2 days before Bill's disappearance. They also found out she was having an affair. Police then discovered Bill's vehicle in Atlantic City. Melanie claims that she'd moved the vehicle as a prank. She said that he was out at a casino and she was sick of him gambling, so she moved the car. However, police found on Melanie's computer that she'd Googled how to purchase guns illegally. She also searched how to commit murder and undetectable poisons. Rubbish bags in her house also matched the rubbish bags that Bill was wrapped in. Melanie was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, but she maintained she was not the killer. She suggested that her husband may have been killed over gambling debts. She claims that Bill had told her to buy a gun to protect herself.